So if you do this fitness stuff long enough, there's no way around it. You're gonna lose motivation at some point. And while you can never rely on motivation, it is sure nice when it's here. It makes things a lot easier and you can do some amazing things. And honestly, I've really been struggling quite a bit for the last handful of months with my fitness goals. I just talked about this on my Facebook page. If you're not following that, follow it at Colin DeWaay Training. I'm planning on posting there a lot more frequently. So I wanted to create this video so you could know, one, that everyone struggles. I mean, even people like myself who end up making this their career because they love it so much. It doesn't seem like it sometimes because social media is just a highlight reel and it just seems like everyone's doing great all the time. It's just nobody talks about their struggles. And if you are struggling, I wanted to talk about some strategies you can take to stop backsliding, start getting back into the swing of things, and start feeling more motivated again. And honestly, it may surprise you, but what I would say is the number one thing you can do to start getting more motivated is just talk about how you're struggling. Whether that's talking to a friend or a family member, sending out an email to someone, you could even leave a comment in this video about how you're struggling and just talk about it and see that when you do so, you tend to feel so much better. It's like getting the poison out of your body. You gotta let that stuff go. One of the things I talk about frequently with my clients is a lot of times they tend to feel like I'm only there to kind of like almost be like a cheerleader and celebrate the wins and talk about how everything's going great. But the truth is it's more about being the go-to person for when you are struggling, because otherwise you just kind of keep it to yourself and it just festers and you start to feel worse and you feel like you should be able to get out of it yourself, but you don't. And it just snowballs into something bigger and bigger and bigger and gets harder and harder to get out of that funk. So talk about it, get it out there. And this is why I have a day every Tuesday in my Facebook group that's for clients only. I call it Struggle Bus Tuesday, and I want them to talk about their struggles for this very reason. It's the very thing that will help you get over your struggle and start getting more motivated. Now for me and some of my struggles, I pretty much know part of the struggle is I just really have no goals right now. I mean, my goal is just kind of roughly maintain and have some flexibility and enjoy life. And I think that's oftentimes the goal of most people. In fact, that's what I see more times than not is I want to lose the weight and I want to keep it off. But if you think about it, your goal at that point is to literally stay the same. And what's less motivating than putting in work just to stay the same? I mean, that's basically what burnout is. Burnout is action without results, and people just love results. We all do. But if you're just trying to stay the same, you're not going to see that physical progress, and that can be mentally challenging, but you can't just stop. I mean, if you stop, you're not going to stay the same. You're going to go backward. Almost 100%. There's no way around it. You're going to lose whatever progress you made before. So if that is your goal, it's time to focus on some other goals you can create, like performance-based goals. Hitting certain numbers on lifts or being able to perform certain types of cardio at a certain intensity, whatever it may be. I don't care what they are, but trying to create some goals that you can do physically versus some kind of body composition goal can really help keep you enjoying the gym and in there and excited. Otherwise, like what's happened to me is you kind of find yourself, at least I'm still showing up to the gym, but it's just not very exciting. I was just kind of going through the motions and just not really enjoying things. But at the same time, in a way that was a good thing because it's important to just keep yourself in the game. That is absolutely critical because honestly, like pretty much all full-on quitting typically starts with taking a break. You're losing your motivation, you're not enjoying things, you're getting burnt out, and you feel like, I just need to take a break. That's usually just the start of just giving up altogether because objects at rest stay at rest. The longer you're out of the game, the harder it is to get back in again. Now, this doesn't mean you can't like take a week off here or there. I mean, that's not going to be a big deal outside of, again, it can be hard to get started again. And if you don't make that commitment to get going, that can be pretty dangerous. So allowing yourself to stay in the game, even if backing way off, is one of the best pieces of advice I can give you. Like for me personally, I used to always lift 5 times per week. I did that for years. Now for the last couple of years, I've been going 4 times per week. Well, now the last few months has been 3 times per week. And I'm just basically, for me, that's like my bare minimum. I'm not saying that should be your bare minimum, but that's my bare minimum. And by doing that, it can help you feel accomplished. So say for instance, you do feel like you should be working out 5 days per week, but you're only going 2 or 3 days per week. Now you start feeling like, well, I'm failing, I'm not doing what I should do. And that makes you feel bad. You start to feel down about things and you kind of feel like, well, if I'm not hitting my plan, I might as well just stop until I can fully commit. I hear that all the time. And it's just like, you're never going to win that way. Whereas if you go, okay, like I can only handle maybe 2 or 3 days per week right right now. So you set that as your goal and you hit that. Now you're working out the same amount of times as you did before, but now you feel accomplished because you're hitting your goal versus feeling bad because you're not getting in what you think you should. And honestly, the same thing goes for food too, whether you're tracking or not. Like if you are tracking, just because you don't feel like you can track anymore, that's fine. Like you can stop tracking, but don't turn, well, I don't want to track into I should just eat whatever I want in whatever quantity as I want. No, like you know how you typically eat, just eat relatively similar. Or if you're in a deficit, but you're overcutting, you can start eating more, but just don't go crazy, right? Like there's a big difference between backing off and being more flexible versus screw it, I don't care, what's the point, gaining all the way back and then some, and then constantly starting over. One of the most important things is getting away from that all or nothing mindset. I know, I just talked about it in this video, I talk about it in every one of my videos almost, because it's just one of the biggest struggles I see. It's so common and it's a killer. You cannot win with an all or nothing mindset. So learning to be okay with less and maybe not making progress for a while, but keeping yourself relatively steady, that's a win. One of the things I like to say is when it comes to long-term success, it's about thriving during the good times and surviving the bad times, because life is always going to happen. The ebbs and flows are going to continue to come. And if you only put in work when you feel good and everything's lined up, you're never going to win. You're never going to get there because it's going to keep happening. So you have to learn how to get into survival mode sometimes, keep yourself in the game, and you have to make some of these things non-negotiable. You can't make things like working out optional, because if it's optional, whenever things get challenging, you're going to take the option out every single time. Plus, you have to understand motivation comes from doing. You get motivated when you don't feel like doing something, when you're tired and exhausted and frustrated, but you still show up and you do it anyways. That often is the very thing that makes you motivated, because it feels good. It makes you proud. It builds confidence, and it starts to build momentum and get some of that motivation back. Motivation doesn't come out of thin air. You will not get motivated sitting around waiting for it to just all of a sudden appear. It's not going to happen. It's going to happen from doing, regardless of how you feel. Again, not about being perfect, not about always doing every single little thing, but you have to do something. And if you just keep showing up, the motivation will eventually come back. I can't tell you how long. It could be a few days, it could be a few weeks, it could be several months. I don't know, but it will eventually come back. But if you stop altogether, it may never come back, and now you've completely set yourself back and you have to start over. So be okay with kind of staying the same for a while. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't have to be either see progress or go backwards. But if you stop, you're gonna go backwards. Now, all that being said, you also need to be okay with possibly gaining a little bit of weight. I don't want you freaking out just because you go up a few pounds here and there. It's not the end of the world. And even just gaining a little bit of weight is way better than yo-yo dieting and constantly going way up and down 20, 30, 50 pounds. And sometimes you're gonna be so much better off being okay with gaining some weight, especially if you need to like reverse diet, you're in a bad spot metabolically. I don't want you focusing all your attention on your body composition and your weight and judging yourself as a person based on these things. And if you are someone who's always struggled with being afraid of gaining weight, please make sure to check out this top video next, and I hope that it'll help you get past some of those struggles. Otherwise, I think you'll like this bottom video instead. If you are struggling with motivation, just know it'll come back. Keep going. Like I kept saying, keep yourself in the game and you'll get it back and you'll start seeing progress again.